I see you. I see the man you truly are. Oh, is that so? You think she sees you, the way she looks at you, the way her voice softens when she says you're different. For a moment, you believe she's discovered something in you that nobody else has ever noticed. And it feels incredible, doesn't it? To finally be recognized, to finally feel chosen. But here's the cruel truth. Most men live their whole lives invisible. They work, they provide, they try to be good enough, and still, nobody seems to really notice. Then one day, a woman appears who says, I see you. I see the man you really are. And instantly, you're hooked. Because that kind of validation is like oxygen to a starving man. What if I told you she isn't actually seeing you at all? What if she's only seeing the outline of a fantasy she's been carrying since childhood? A fantasy you're being forced to act out without even realizing it. That's the trap. That's the illusion. And it's destroying men's lives in ways they don't even notice until it's too late. Today, I'm going to reveal the most dangerous illusion women use in relationships. Not out of cruelty, not even on purpose, but because it's built into the way they see men. Once you understand this, you'll never look at dating, attraction, or love the same way again. So listen closely, because if you miss this truth, you'll spend your whole life playing a role in someone else's story and never living your own. You think she finally noticed you? That she fell in love with the man no one else understood. But here's the twist. It's not you she's in love with. It's the role she needs you to play. This is the most dangerous illusion in modern relationships. And if you don't see it, you'll spend years bleeding energy into a game you can't win. Every man knows the feeling. She tells you you're different. She swears you're special. For a while, you believe it. And that belief lights you up. It gives you the recognition you've been starving for. But pay attention, because what feels like recognition is really projection. She isn't seeing your soul. She's scanning for the missing pieces of a picture that already exists inside her mind. Imagine a painting that's been sitting on her wall since childhood. The outlines are there. The colors are chosen. The story is set. When you arrive, you're not entering her life as yourself. You're just filling in the blanks on that unfinished canvas. Your smile, a brush stroke. Your words, a splash of paint. Your personality, just background color for her fantasy. And here's the cruel trick: the more you fit the picture, the more she rewards you. Her excitement feels like passion. Her attention feels like love. Her admiration feels like truth. But it's not truth. It's performance. Men fall for this because we crave what she seems to offer. Most men live unseen. Their effort goes unnoticed. Their strength unappreciated. Their value unrecognized. So when a woman looks at you and says, I see something no one else does, it's like oxygen to a drowning man. You cling to it. You fight to keep it alive. You even change yourself just to protect it. But here's the loop. The more you change to fit her image, the more you lose yourself. And the more you lose yourself, the easier you are to replace. Because the truth is brutal. She isn't attached to you. She's attached to the script she's been carrying her whole life. And when you stop performing, she won't fight for the man you really are. She'll just find another actor willing to play the role. Not because she's evil, not because she wants to hurt you, but because this is how the illusion works. Not love, but projection. Not recognition, but fantasy. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. So the real question is, how long can you keep pretending to be someone else before the mask cracks? And what happens when it does? At first, playing the role feels effortless. She lights up at your every move. She praises you for being exactly what she always dreamed of. And you think to yourself, finally, I've found the one who truly understands me. But here's where the trap tightens. You're not being loved for your true self. You're being rewarded for how well you perform the character in her script. And keeping that character alive takes energy you don't even realize you're burning. Soon, the cracks appear. You forget a line. You show a side of yourself that doesn't match her fantasy. And suddenly, the warmth begins to fade. What used to be praise turns into criticism. What used to be fascination becomes frustration. It feels like betrayal, doesn't it? But here's the twist. It's not betrayal. It's revelation. She isn't changing her love for you. She's revealing that her love was never for you to begin with. It was for the projection she created. This is why so many men end up drained, confused, and broken. Because they think, what did I do wrong? I was everything she wanted. The painful truth is you weren't everything she wanted. You were everything her fantasy required until you couldn't keep the mask on any longer. And the cycle is brutal. The same qualities that made you her hero will later be rebranded as flaws. Your confidence, now it's arrogance. Your independence, now it's selfishness. Your strength, now it's aggression. You haven't changed. Only her projection has flipped from light to shadow. Here's the loop: she crowns you the savior, then casts you as the villain. And because you never understood the illusion, you believe the story. You start thinking, maybe I am the problem. But you're not the problem. The problem is the stage you agreed to perform on. You volunteered for the role without realizing the cost. And that cost is your identity. Not recognition, but rejection. Not love, but performance. So ask yourself, how long can you keep trading your soul for her approval? How long before you realize the applause was never for you, but for the act? Because the moment the mask slips, the show ends, and the man left standing on that empty stage has a choice. Keep auditioning for roles in someone else's fantasy, or finally walk off and start living his own story. When the mask finally breaks, most men panic. They scramble to glue the pieces back together, desperate to restore the illusion. They try harder, they talk softer, they sacrifice more. And yet, the more they bend, the faster the connection slips away. But here's the twist. It's not about saving the relationship. It's about saving yourself. This is where the illusion reveals its final cost. You thought you were loved for your soul. In reality, you were loved for a character you could never sustain. And living as that character doesn't just exhaust you, it erases you. Bit by bit, the man you really are disappears behind the role she scripted for you. That's why so many men feel empty even when they're successful in love. Because deep down, they know they're not being loved at all. They're being applauded for a mask. And every mask eventually cracks. So, what's the way out? It isn't about learning how to play the role better. It isn't about memorizing new lines. The escape is something far more radical: individuation. Becoming whole within yourself instead of chasing completion through her eyes. This path is terrifying, and that's why most men avoid it. It means facing the truth you've been running from, the fear of rejection, the need for validation, the possibility that if you show up as your true self, you might not be enough. But here's the paradox. It's not rejection you should fear. It's the acceptance that comes with pretending. Being loved for a mask may feel safer, but it will hollow you out. Being rejected for who you truly are may sting, but it will set you free. And individuation is freedom. It's the courage to stop performing, to stop shaping yourself around someone else's fantasy, to stop trading authenticity for approval. Instead, you build an inner sense of worth that no one can give or take away. The process is lonely. You'll lose connections built on performance. You'll face silence where applause used to be. But in that silence, something new emerges. Self-respect, integrity, strength that doesn't depend on someone else's recognition. Not a role, but reality. Not a script, but your story. So the question becomes, will you keep chasing the high of being chosen, or will you develop the power to choose yourself? Because the man who chooses himself is no longer an actor in someone else's play. He becomes the author of his own. Most men never learn how to tell the difference between being seen and being projected onto. That's why they get stuck in the cycle, over and over. They mistake fantasy for love and performance for connection. But here's the twist. It's not love. If it depends on your performance, it's projection. So how do you spot it? Pay attention to the patterns. When a woman genuinely sees you, her attraction doesn't fluctuate every time you stumble. It doesn't vanish when you're tired, stressed, or off your game. She responds to your real qualities, the things you actually live out consistently. She's interested in your thoughts, your fears, your struggles, and your growth. She notices when you contradict yourself, and she calls you out with honesty because she wants to know the real you. Projection feels different. Her enthusiasm rises and falls, depending on how well you match the fantasy in her head. One day, you're her hero. The next day, you're a disappointment. She praises you not for your truth, but for your performance. And deep down, you feel it you're not being loved. You're being graded. Here's the loop: the more you sense her approval slipping, the harder you try to win her back. You bend. You adapt. You start cutting off parts of yourself just to fit the role better. But no matter how hard you try, the role always demands more. And when you finally burn out, she'll walk away, saying, "You've changed." But you haven't changed. The mask slipped. That's all. Not stability, but conditions. Not partnership, but performance. Here's the painful truth. Women who live through projection aren't looking for a partner, they're looking for an actor. And as long as you keep auditioning, you'll never experience genuine love. The real thing feels different. Authentic love doesn't demand a performance. It feels steady, not conditional. It feels like collaboration, not a stage play. Both people bring their full selves, the strengths and the flaws, and neither needs the other to complete some unfinished story from childhood. So here's the question that keeps men stuck in the loop. If love without performance exists, why does projection feel so much more intoxicating at first? Why do men keep falling for the counterfeit instead of holding out for the real thing? That's what we'll uncover next. Because until you answer that, you'll keep chasing illusions and mistaking them for love. Here's the reason projection works so well on men. Most men walk through life unseen. They work hard. They sacrifice. They carry weight in silence. And still, nobody truly recognizes them. Friends overlook them. Family takes them for granted. Society treats them as replaceable. So when a woman looks into your eyes and says, "I see something no one else has ever seen in you," it cuts straight to the core. It feels like water in the desert, like oxygen to starving lungs, and that's why men fall so fast, so hard. But here's the twist. It's not recognition. It's reflection. She isn't seeing your hidden greatness. She's projecting her own needs, fears, and fantasies onto you. You just happen to fit the outline. That false recognition is addictive. You crave it because it soothes the ache of being invisible. You'll do almost anything to keep it alive. You change your behavior. You censor your truth. You play the part. And for a while, it feels worth it because her admiration gives you what the world never has. But this is the loop. The more you perform, the more you lose. Every compromise cuts off another piece of who you really are. Every adjustment makes you less authentic and more of a character. Eventually, you don't even know where the role ends and where you begin. And by then, it's too late because the man she claims to love never actually existed. That's why the crash hurts so much. When the mask slips and she pulls away, you don't just lose her. You lose the version of yourself you built to keep her. And you're left hollow, wondering why being the perfect man wasn't enough. Not love, but dependency. Not connection, but addiction. And addiction always takes more than it gives. This is why men stay trapped. They confuse the high of being noticed with the substance of being loved. They confuse applause with intimacy. They confuse fantasy with reality. And the longer they stay in that confusion, the deeper the damage becomes. So the question is this: if projection feels so powerful, how do you break free from its grip? How do you stop chasing counterfeit recognition and start building a life where you're seen for who you really are? That's the step we take next. Because until you break the addiction, you'll never escape the illusion. The only real escape from this cycle is to stop performing, to stop trading your authenticity for her approval, to stop living as a character in someone else's play. But here's the twist. It's not about fixing her. It's about facing yourself. Most men think the solution is to find a woman who won't project, who will see them for who they really are. But that search is just another illusion. Because until you reclaim your own identity, you'll always be vulnerable to projection. You'll always crave validation. You'll always be seduced by the fantasy of being seen. The real work is individuation, building an internal foundation so strong that no external opinion can define you. It's not glamorous. It's not easy. It's often lonely. But it's the only way to break free. Individuation means you stop outsourcing your value. You stop begging others to tell you you're enough. You stop auditioning for roles that were never meant for you. Instead, you begin to choose yourself. You create standards of worth that come from within, not from applause. At first, it feels terrifying. The silence is deafening when you step off the stage. No one is cheering. No one is clapping. And you begin to wonder, was I a fool to leave? But then something powerful happens. In that silence, you hear your own voice again. For the first time in years. Maybe for the first time ever. That voice says, I am enough. Even if no one notices, even if no one applauds, not performance, but presence, not approval, but authenticity. And that shift changes everything. Because when you no longer need her projection to feel valuable, you become unshakable. You're no longer addicted to her recognition. You're no longer bargaining your soul for her affection. You're free. This is why individuation is the most radical act a man can take. It doesn't just protect you from toxic dynamics. It gives you back your life, your energy, your identity. And once you taste that freedom, the thought of ever returning to the stage feels unbearable. So the question is simple. Will you keep playing roles that drain you? Or will you step into the terrifying, liberating process of becoming whole? Because only when you choose the second path do you finally stop living as a projection and start living as a man. Once you begin reclaiming your identity, something fascinating happens. You start to notice the sharp difference between projection and genuine love, and the contrast is so obvious. You can't believe you ever missed it. Here's the twist. It's not love. When she's in love with who you're pretending to be, it's love when she accepts who you already are. In projection-based relationships, attraction feels like a spotlight. It shines on you when you perform, but fades the moment you step out of character. One day, you're the perfect man. The next day, you're a disappointment. The rules are never clear, because they're written in her imagination. You live in a constant audition, trying to guess what role she wants you to play next. Real partnership feels nothing like that. It's steady. It's grounded. It doesn't vanish when you're tired, stressed, or imperfect. In authentic love, she's not clinging to a fantasy. She's engaging with you, your thoughts, your flaws, your contradictions. She wants to know the real man, not just the polished character. Here's the loop. Men get stuck in projection feels more exciting at first. It feels intoxicating, like fireworks. Authentic love, by comparison, feels calmer, even unfamiliar. And because most men are addicted to the high of being chosen, they confuse drama with passion. They chase the roller coaster instead of the steady ground. But the crash always comes. Projection relationships burn fast and collapse under their own weight. Authentic partnerships, on the other hand, grow stronger the more reality shows up. Not conditional, but consistent. Not fantasy, but collaboration. And here's what most men don't realize when you stop performing. You filter out the women who only wanted a role filled. They'll lose interest. They'll drift away, maybe even resent your refusal to play along. But the ones who remain, those are the women who are capable of true intimacy. Women who don't need to project, because they've already done the inner work themselves. So the question is clear: do you want the thrill of projection that always ends in collapse, or the depth of authenticity that builds something real? Because in the end, you can't have both. Here's what no one warns you about once you break free from projection. You won't just lose certain women, you'll lose parts of society itself. Because here's the twist. It's not that people hate your clarity. It's that your clarity exposes their illusions. When you stop playing roles, you start to notice the masks others are wearing. You see the anxiety hiding behind arrogance. You notice the hunger for approval disguised as confidence. You recognize projection where others swear it's true love. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. But here's the loop when you point it out. People don't thank you. They attack you. They call you cold, arrogant, judgmental. They accuse you of being bitter or broken. What they're really saying is that your presence threatens their comfort. Your honesty makes their illusions harder to maintain. And instead of facing themselves, they turn you into the villain. This is the social cost of individuation. You no longer fit the script that makes everyone else feel safe. You refuse to participate in the games of validation and manipulation that hold most relationships together. And because of that, people label you as distant, unavailable, even dangerous. Not because you've become cruel, but because you've become free. And freedom scares people who are still trapped. Here's the paradox: the more authentic you become, the fewer connections you'll seem to have. Superficial bonds will wither. Performative friendships will fall apart. Projection-based relationships will collapse. At first, it feels like loss, but in reality, it's purification. Because what remains after the illusions burn away is real, solid, rare, not popularity, but truth, not approval, but integrity. And this stage is where most men falter. They confuse loneliness with failure. They mistake isolation for weakness. They think, if no one accepts me, maybe I'm the problem. But the truth is the opposite. The more resistance you face, the clearer the sign that you're stepping out of the collective illusion. So here's the question you must answer. Do you want the comfort of belonging to a lie, or the discomfort of standing in truth? Because one path keeps you surrounded, but asleep. The other leaves you exposed, but awake. There's an even deeper layer to projection, one most men never see until it's too late. It's not just about playing a role in her fantasy. It's about handing over the very core of who you are. Here's the twist. It's not love. When she becomes your source of meaning, it's dependency. Many men project not just their value, but their entire soul onto women. Her mood dictates their emotional state. Her approval defines their self-worth. Her presence gives them purpose. She becomes not just a partner, but the container for their very identity. And that weight is crushing for both of you. At first, it feels intoxicating. Every smile from her feels like sunshine. Every touch feels like salvation. You believe you've finally found the missing piece of your soul. But here's the loop: no woman can carry that burden forever. The moment she falters, the moment she steps back, your entire world collapses. Not because she betrayed you, but because you gave her a responsibility no one can hold. And when she inevitably drops it, you feel destroyed. You think, she abandoned me, she failed me, she broke me. But the brutal truth is this: she didn't abandon your soul, you abandoned it first, by giving it away. Not partnership, but possession. Not love, but spiritual outsourcing. The way out is reclamation. Taking back the parts of yourself you handed over. Rebuilding your relationship with your own soul instead of outsourcing it to hers. That means finding purpose not in being chosen, but in choosing yourself. Finding meaning not in her recognition, but in your own integrity. This isn't about rejecting love. It's about refusing to make love your only oxygen supply. A relationship should add richness to your life, not carry the weight of your existence. When you reclaim your soul, you stop needing her to complete you. And only then can you meet as equals whole with whole, rather than broken with broken. So ask yourself, have you been loving her? Or have you been using her as the container for your lost identity? Because until you answer that, you'll never truly escape the deepest trap of projection. Every man eventually reaches a crossroads. You can keep playing the role she's written for you, or you can step off the stage and write your own story. Here's the twist. It's not safety that keeps you in her script. It's fear. Fear of being rejected as your true self. Fear of being unseen without the mask. Fear of losing the applause you've grown addicted to. But here's the reality. The applause isn't for you. It's for the character. And the longer you wear the costume, the more you disappear underneath it. This is the final loop men get trapped in. They think being chosen makes them valuable. They think acceptance means love. They think playing along means connection. But none of that is true. Being chosen while you're in costume is not the same as being loved for who you are. It's just validation for a performance. Not love, but illusion. Not connection, but contract. So the question is unavoidable. Do you want to be a character or an author? A character is defined by someone else's expectations, bound by someone else's script, replaceable the moment you stumble. An author, on the other hand, takes full responsibility for the story. He writes his own role. He sets his own standards. He chooses authenticity over approval, truth over fantasy. And yes, it's terrifying. To be yourself in a world that rewards performance is the hardest choice you'll ever make. You will lose roles. You will lose approval. You will lose connections that were never real to begin with. But what you gain cannot be measured self-respect, freedom, and the possibility of love that isn't built on illusion. Not a mask, but a man. Not a script, but a life. So here's the final challenge. Will you keep performing for the comfort of being chosen? Or will you embrace the discomfort of being yourself, even if it means standing alone? Because only one of those choices leads to real connection. Only one leads to truth. And only one makes you more than a character in someone else's fantasy. It makes you the author of your own story. So here's the truth that most men never face. Projection feels like love, but it's not. It feels like recognition, but it's just reflection. And as long as you chase that illusion, you'll keep bleeding your energy into roles that were never yours to play. But once you see it, everything changes. You stop confusing the applause for love. You stop mistaking her fantasy for your identity. And you realize you have a choice. Keep performing for approval, or live with the courage of authenticity. Not performance, but presence. Not fantasy, but truth. That shift will cost you. You'll lose people who only wanted a character. You'll lose relationships built on projection. You'll lose the comfort of belonging to illusions. But what you gain is priceless. Self-respect, freedom, and the chance to experience love that doesn't demand you wear a mask. And here's the final twist. It's not women who hold the power in this illusion. It's you. Because she may offer the role, but you're the one who chooses to audition. She may hand you the script, but you're the one who decides to memorize the lines. The moment you refuse, the illusion breaks. So ask yourself right now, are you willing to walk off the stage? Are you ready to stop trading your soul for applause? Because no one can make that choice for you. The man who stays a character will always be replaceable. The man who becomes an author will never be forgotten. So decide, will you keep living as someone else's fantasy? Or will you finally become the author of your own life? The answer determines everything. Thank you for watching. If this message hit you, don't just scroll away. Subscribe, dive deeper into our content, and start building the mindset that puts you back in control. Drop a comment below. What's the biggest struggle you want us to break down next? Let's build a brotherhood of men who rise above confusion and reclaim their power. See you in the next video.